Hello and welcome back to Soulful Strategies with Kathleen Amy. This is where business meets intuition and where we talk about strategy and systems in a way that actually honors your capacity, your season of life, and the fact that for most thoughtful beings, thoughtful humans running service-based businesses, you have an abundance of ideas. It's just that content is starting to feel like this constant mental load sitting in the background. And that's what this episode's about today and what I want to talk about today. Because if you've ever found yourself sitting down to create content and being like, yep, this is the day, I've blocked it off in my calendar, I'm actually going to sit down and create my content for the month, for the week, and then feeling that immediate kind of internal negotiation of like, what am I even posting? Should I teach? Should I be personal? Am I allowed to sell this week? Have I already said this? Is this aligned? Is this boring? Is it too much? Is it not enough? And then you end up posting nothing because you're exhausted before you've even started. You're trying to create without structure, and that's the problem. And that's what we're going to chat about, because content can become really inefficient when you're rebuilding that structure every time you sit down to create. And really then it's about removing that friction so that content is easier to create. And what removes that friction, in my experience, is rhythm. And that's the whole reason why I built the Soulful Social Rhythm in the first place, because I kept seeing the same pattern with the people I was working with and the people online that I see again and again. They were struggling because they were rebuilding their visibility every single week and then making that mean something about themselves when they couldn't sustain it. So it becomes this whole story about how you're not consistent. Of course, it's hard to be consistent when every single post is asking so much of you, or you're feeling like every single post is asking so much of you before you've even written the first sentence, because you're deciding what kind of post it is, what angle to take, whether you should be teaching or selling or sharing something more personal, more authentic. And I have a lot of opinions about being authentic online. That's another episode. And whether it's even good enough to post. So the Soulful Social Rhythm is my way of simplifying that. It's a self-paced framework built around a weekly rhythm that really gives your ideas somewhere to land. And what I'm sharing in this episode is the core structure of it. But inside the full framework, I go further into the monthly map, the hook banks, the caption scaffolds, the batching or creation flow, and the practical guidance that helps you actually use the rhythm rather than just understand it, because we want you to actually be using it, right? And so at the center of this rhythm is 4 post topics, and that is authority, connection, nurture, and invitation. And I'm going to walk you through each of them, but I want you to hear them as a rhythm, not as 4 separate content tasks. The point isn't to post one of these once and expect it to carry everything. The point is that over a week and then over a month and then over a quarter and then over a time where you're consistent, your audience gets to experience you as a business more fully. They get your thinking, your humanity, your guidance, and a clear sense of what you offer without it feeling like you're constantly trying to sell to them. So we're going to start with authority. Authority content is where you are teaching, or you're naming a pattern, or you make something clearer. It's you being that archetype of guide, essentially. It's you showing that you can see what's really going on underneath. And I think sometimes people hear authority and they think it means being loud or being an expert, and that's not what I mean. It's the things you keep noticing, the things that you can articulate because you are in this work, you're in the conversations, you've seen it enough times that you can name it really clearly. And authority is what helps people trust your mind and your guidance in particular versus anyone else in your industry that they could hire. Okay, this is going to be all of your content is going to be your differentiator, but your authority pieces are what you are seeing from your embodied knowledge and expertise. So then we get into connection. And Any content really is connection content. And you'll kind of see as we go through this episode that they overlap. But really, it's just to make sure that you are covering every base, that you are making each post have one job in your content ecosystem, in your rhythm, so that you're not stuffing one post with every single thing every time, and you are going to confuse yourself and you're confusing your audience. So connection content is where people feel you, and it's really what bridges that gap between you and them. It might be a story, it might be behind the scenes moments, it might be a truth you're living, it might be something you're navigating or have navigated, it might be something you've noticed in yourself. And it's not oversharing, it's not performance, it's just human, it's just being human. And this matters because a lot of people don't buy because they understand what you do. It's because they feel safe with you, particularly for people listening in on this who are in service-based, spiritual, holistic wellness spaces. Connection builds that proximity. It's not that you necessarily need to be relatable. It's not about that. And that's like a whole nother podcast that I could film or record as well. But it's about building that bridge between you and them. Then we come to nurture. Nurture content is the part that a lot of people skip. And I actually think it's one of the reasons selling feels so hard for some people, because nurture is where you support your audience without asking anything from them. It's where you normalize their experience. It's where you offer reassurance if that is in line with your branding. You know, you've got to tweak it to what's in line with your business. It could be a reframe. It could be a really small grounding truth. It's where you make the path that you offer for them, what you're selling, feel possible. It's kind of like, I think of it as if authority is the mind and connection is your heart, nurture is the nervous system. So you're making people feel safe in your content and like they would actually want to work with your business or actually buy from your business. So you can start to see how it's all connecting, and it's what settles people. And then invitation. Invitation is selling, but it's selling in a way that feels really integrated. It's you saying, here's how I can help. Here's what's available. Here's the next step if you want it. It's not pushy. It's not daily sales content. It's just consistent. It's woven. And I just want to gently say in there on the daily sales content, say something here, because there's a lot of noise online about this. And a lot of my clients will say, I don't want to be salesy. You'll hear people say every post needs to be a selling post. And you'll hear other people say, you shouldn't sell too much. And it becomes this weird tug of war about percentages and funnels and how often you're allowed to mention your offer. And you should mention your offer every post. But let's just come back to basics for a second. If you are online marketing your business, you are selling. Even when you're not doing a direct invitation, you are still selling. Every post is still selling. Authority is selling. You're selling your competence. Connection is selling. You're selling your relatability. Nurture is selling. You're selling your steadiness. And behind the scenes is selling. You're selling proximity. You are always selling something. So the issue isn't whether you're selling, you are. The question is whether you're doing it consciously, strategically. And sometimes what feels uncomfortable online isn't the selling itself. It's pretending you're not selling when you actually are. It's pretending something is just value when it's actually positioning. And there's nothing wrong with positioning. You are running a business. There's no shame in positioning yourself as a service provider or as a business. But when you own the fact that you are marketing, you're going to stop going between, I don't want to be salesy and maybe I need to sell harder. You just realize that you're always selling in some way. So you might as well be really intentional about it. And this is why rhythm matters so much. And while I'll bang on about it all day, because when you know, okay, this week I'm anchoring authority. This week I'm deepening connection. This week I'm nurturing. This week I'm inviting, or this day I'm doing this and this day I'm doing that. You don't have to sit there wondering, am I selling too much? Am I not selling enough? Am I doing this wrong? Because the baseline is there. You're not reinventing your ethics every time you open Instagram or TikTok or wherever you're showing up online. And when you're in maintenance mode, when you're maintaining this, you still sell. You're just not amplifying it constantly. And invitation content keeps selling present without you feeling like you are in a constant launch cycle. And when you're in a launch season, the rhythm, that baseline doesn't disappear. You just turn up the volume on certain posts. You might be turning up the volume on invitation. You might be turning up the volume on authority. The foundation stays the same, which means your launch doesn't feel like it just came out of nowhere. People have already been in your world. They aren't seeing you for the first time and going, what does this person even do? They ghosted me for like 3 months. I didn't even know they're in business. And these days with the algorithm anyway, they might not be seeing all of your posts. They're probably not seeing all your posts. And I say this a lot, that repetition isn't boring. People aren't going to be seeing you on every platform, every post all the time. You're probably going to be repeating yourself, or not probably, you are going to be repeating yourself a lot. And that's okay. That's repetition builds trust. Repetition builds that authority. And people are going to recognize you and your content if you keep at it. So the simplest way to use this is literally to pick one post per week on a certain day in each category. That's it. And I know some people will say, but what about daily posting? You can post daily if you want. But most people listening to this podcast, I know, and that I work with, are not struggling because they're not posting enough. They're struggling because content feels hard to stick to. It feels heavy. They're not even consistent enough to talk about daily posting. And the heaviness is in the decision making. And again, I want to say there's no shame in that. If you've followed me, I've been in business for almost 8 years. When is this podcast coming out? I'm recording in April, but it's coming out in June, and in October, it'll be like 8 years in business. And there have been periods of time where I have definitely ghosted. And that is because I did not have a consistent rhythm. And that is why I built this framework from my embodied knowledge and how to actually create a consistent rhythm as a lower energy, highly sensitive person who has a lot of things going on in their life. Okay. So the rhythm reduces that decision fatigue. So I know I've got a baseline that's always happening, because instead of sitting down thinking, oh, what should I post? You're thinking, okay, what does my authority post look like today or this week? What does my connection post look like this week? What does my nurture look like? And what's my invitation for the month? And that structure and those systems are what is going to protect your time and energy. So if you've been feeling inconsistent, or like you disappear and return in waves, just like your creative process ebbs and flows, or like content takes you half the day because you overthink every single part of it, this is the kind of structure that is going to bring you back to that steadiness and baseline. And if you want the full framework, not just the overview, that's exactly what the Soulful Social Rhythm gives you. Inside it, I go further into the 4 post types with examples, the monthly rhythm, the hook banks, the caption structures, the batching flow, and the practical guidance that helps you actually use it rather than just understand it intellectually. Because understanding the framework is one thing, knowing that you have 4 posts is one thing, but having something written with modules that you can come back to and implement month after month is another. So if this episode has been landing and you know you want a steadier way to show up, I'll link the Soulful Social Rhythm in the show notes for you. It's there for you. And thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I know you're so busy, and I really don't take it lightly that you press play. If you've been enjoying the podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, I'd be so grateful if you shared with somebody you think might need this, or left a review, because it helps this reach more people building businesses with depth and steadiness. I'll see you in the next episode.